Good afternoon. I hope you had a good lunch. We're going to go ahead and get started because I think there's going to be a lot of questions. So disclaimer. First thing is disclaimer. Denise and I, we both teach at Comanche. We teach this year first grade. We loop. So we did first, second grade last year. We're back to first grade. So we do loop, and so they asked us to teach second grade because we were familiar with doing second grade curriculum, and we did it starting mid-year. So this first part that we're doing, we actually just jumped back in and kind of laid it out for you what it would look like. We're not experts by any means, but we have done it for half a year, and I have to say I absolutely love it. Absolutely love the program. You have to, it has a little extra work, and you have to be thinking a little bit differently, but it really does engage all the students, and it really does give you still an opportunity to differentiate at the end. So I think that's the concerns that people have, is when they can differentiate, and so that is a possibility. And we'll kind of talk about how to do that when we get there. Like I said, I'm Nancy Abraham Denise Alphson. We teach first grade, but we did teach second grade last year.
Peek in a room.
So we wanted to start because I think before you even start teaching Engage New York, you need to make sure that you set up a climate in your classroom where mistakes are valued. So you celebrate mistakes. And I think you probably all do this, but what we do in our first days of school, our first weeks, we spend that ELA time in the morning. We spend part of our social studies time talking about growth mindset and especially making mistakes. A couple really good books, if you have not used them, The Girl Who Never Made Mistakes and It's Okay to Make Mistakes. They're wonderful children's literature. And this PowerPoint is in your classroom. Which, did you want to?
I'll explain that in just a minute.
Yeah, so if you want to use those books, they're really great books to kind of teach kids about making mistakes.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you want to go to Google Classroom, everything that we're going to present to you today is there. You have access to it. You can look at it later at home when you're trying to regurgitate all of that you've heard. But the Google Classroom code is DTWEIJ.
And while you're typing that in, I want you to know that Comanche, because it is Title I, but we really have had in the past a lot of really high kids and a lot of struggling kids, and not much in the middle. And so this program worked really well for that whole range. Even the high kids, because you can kind of differentiate when you're doing fluency. You can move things around. So there's one part where they go to the next 10. So you might say 18, next 10, they'll say 2. But I had students who I'd go 347, next 10, 53, like that. That mental math was phenomenal with some of my students who are really high. So keep in mind that it might be kind of scary, but actually their thinking, and they're talking about their thinking, their math talks that came out of our lessons were really encouraging, just really fun. And so back to mistakes. You want to go?
I was going to flip over to the Google Classroom.
Okay, show them.
Is that?
Yep.
Okay, so here's the Google Classroom if you were able to get in. The stream, come on, is here. This is all on Module 1, Topic A, Lesson 1. If you want, I would recommend opening this right here, the Lesson 1, into your Notability. That way you can pull it up, and as we're kind of going through things, you can write on it and all of that. So I would recommend pulling that up into Notability if you have a minute. Everything that we're going through is on this stream. And then also in the About section, there is a class drive folder that has everything loaded. So you can kind of go back through this at any point in time and kind of refamiliarize yourself with it. Okay? All right. You ready?
I went to the About and there's nothing in it. I'm on the about, there's nothing there.
Well, go to your, is this in the classroom? Are you in Google Classroom? There it is.
Right.
Double click it. Are you in the classroom?
Yeah, I just clicked on exactly what you said.
All right. If you just upload it into Notability, probably have to do that from your iPad. Sorry.
Oh.
We there? Yeah, if you want to upload anything into Notability, you'd have to do that through your iPad. And you don't have to use it, it's just there.
We can kind of show you as we go along what it looks like, and then as we go, if you need more questions, we can go ahead and do that.
Okay.
I know technology is wonderful when it works, right?
Yeah, now how do I get back to that? I clicked about and nothing was there, so.
Click stream.
Yep. Stream.
I don't think that you're in it.
I was on that.
Come back here. There you are.
I clicked
Click on
about.
stream. Click on the stream. There you go.
Okay.
That's all there. Okay, you ready?
Yep.
So,
Joe Boiler is a professor out of Stanford, and she talks a lot about the importance of productive struggles. And I think that's the emphasis of Engage New York. So it's just a quick 2-minute, 3-minute video that I want you to watch about making mistakes.
So, if you're a teacher, start classes with the norm that you love and want mistakes. And don't just say, I love mistakes, mistakes are good, we learn from mistakes. But give students time. And then when they make a mistake, and to present it for everybody to see it. One of the best teachers that I've ever worked with regularly did that with students. I saw her right at the beginning of the year once say to one of her students, would you go and present that on the board? And he said, well, I got it wrong. And then she explained that it's really great for us to see mistakes, because if one student's made it, others will have too, and we can all learn. And the students said, okay, and got up and showed it. And after that, another message teachers, students became really willing to take risks and to make mistakes publicly. When I've tutored people in math, I've always started by saying, by the way, I just want you to know that you love mistakes. They're the time that your brain grows, when you really learn, so it's really great to make mistakes. And people immediately relax and breathe a sigh of relief and are much more willing to jump into problems and persist longer. So the second advice is don't just praise mistakes, but talk about why they're important. Maybe at the start of a year or at other times, talk to students about brain growth. The third point is to give work that encourages mistakes. If students aren't making mistakes in their math work, they're not doing work at the right level for them. So try and always push the boundaries, keep them at the edge of their understanding at all times. And this may require talking to them about what's most helpful for them. For example, you can tell students that when they get a question right, that's not really producing learning, and if you're getting all questions right, you're probably not doing work that's challenging enough. And as Carol has said, students are missing out if they're not getting the chance to make mistakes.
So I gave you a piece of paper. I want you on that paper to draw me a brain. And this is what I do with my students. I say, draw me a brain. And one neat thing about the brain is it kind of looks like a think bubble, doesn't it? So you kind of talk about, when you're thinking, your brain is working. So just draw me your very best brain right there on that piece of paper. And after they draw their brain, then I say to them, think about a time when you learned something new. Like when you tie your shoe or you ride your bike and you were trying for the first time to learn it and you made a mistake. Okay? Go ahead and crunch your paper. So they crunch their paper. And I'll say to them, and it might be that when you were doing that, You didn't get it right away, did you? You made another mistake. So just go ahead and crunch your paper again. And so we crunch our paper a couple times, and then they open their brain, and then I say to them, now flatten it out, and with your pencil, I want you to trace all those little lines. So the kids will go like this, and they'll start tracing all those little bumps that you made when you did your brain. And I'm not going to give you a lot of time to do it, but you go ahead and trace all those little mountain peak tops. So when you're finished, they have a whole lot of little lines in their brain. And then I say to them, okay, so this is the mistake. When you make a mistake, Mrs. Abraham is super happy because I like mistakes. And here we learn with mistakes. When you make this mistake and you figure it out, what your brain does is this. And when your brain is doing that, that means your brain is thinking and you're learning. You know, if you knew it before you sat down with me, then your brain didn't think at all. I call that flat line. If you sat and you weren't listening or paying attention, then your brain wasn't working at all. So only when we make mistakes do our brains grow. And so I think if you really start with that, and then I usually keep this up right by my math, where I do my math talks, and it just stays right on my board all year. So it reminds them, you know, and then I might put a saying, you know, mistakes are proof that you are trying. Or my new one is, what's the next slide? The more you use your brain, the more brain you'll have to use. Because when you use your brain, it grows. And so using these kinds of, I just think if you start with that premise, then you're going to be a whole lot happier. Otherwise, you might have a few tears because some of the struggles and the activities they ask them to do are super duper difficult. And even though they do a lot of pairing and a lot of talk, for those students who are not very confident, it can be kind of threatening. And so it's really important that you start your year off somewhere talking about the power of mistakes. So that's why we thought we'd take a few minutes, because it's so important to kind of establish that culture before you even start your little program. Also, you need to do some management. So Denise is going to tell you about that.
Really, honestly, the biggest thing that you have to think about before the year starts is how are you going to manage all of this? What are your classroom procedures going to be? You need to have hand signals. In my class, I do a think it, share it. So if I'm doing this, they're all thinking, they're quiet, they're not saying anything. When I say it, then they respond to me. However you want it, I think you do it differently.
Right. Well, some, you know, in whole brain, there's everyone. So you want your students to have some kind of signal that tells them they're all going to talk at the same time. And you want to teach them to do that in a choral voice. So you don't want to hear all these people come at different times. Right. And so that takes some teaching. You know, this is what I want to hear. How many? 8. Say it, 8. So that when you're listening and watching, then you'll know who's talking, who's getting it, and who's kind of looking around, which is fine. That's how they learn. But at least you'll know. You'll be able to hear what's going on.
So in addition to that, you also need to think about groupings. A lot of things are talking to partners, pairing. In my classroom, I have usually groups of 4. If I can, I try to keep them even. Right now I have 19 on my roster, so we'll figure that out. But you want to make sure that you have partners. So I have face partners, I have shoulder partners. Sometimes we do the crisscross partner, however you want to do it, because there are lots of times when you're going to be telling them, turn to your partner. So kind of be thinking of that. As far as familiarizing yourself with the resources, we're going to take a look at that at the end, kind of show you where everything is, how to access it, but really spend some time looking through and seeing how the district has set up the folder so that you can access everything you need. And the last one is just figuring out how you're going to store and pass out all those materials and resources. There are lots of things that you will be using. Some of them are like a personal whiteboard, and we've already talked about the possibilities of how we're going to use that in our classroom. In mine, we have cubbies. I have a top shelf and I have a second shelf. And the top shelf I call their mailbox. The second shelf I call their garage. So anything that I want them to store and I don't want it crumpled in their desk, I tell them to put it in the garage. So that way everybody has their own whiteboard. It's not going to get beat up in their desk. They can access it quickly. When we get ready for math, I might say, Team 1, go get your template from your garage or your whiteboard, and they'll go get it.
And the materials, when you get inside those Shawnee Mission folders, you'll see all the templates in there. You can decide, I think as a teacher, you'll decide which templates you really think you need to do or want to make copies of. So I wouldn't start right away and make them all. I would slowly take your time and see which ones you're really going to use. Like this template, I would teach my kids how to draw a number bond. So we would draw the number bond. You can make them with paper plates. You can make them with, and these kids, they're coming to you, hopefully knowing number bonds, but eventually they will have had kindergarten and first grade. It's just that this is the first year, so some of this might be new for them. But I wouldn't do all of these because this is something that they could easily draw themselves. So make some of those just choices are your choices as you're going along. Which templates do you want to use? Which ones do you not want to use?
And I said to someone earlier, sometimes I have them use their desk as their personal whiteboard. Just take a dry erase marker, write on the desk. When we're all done, you can have a wipe, clean it off, we're done, don't move on.
Right.
So, that's also an option.
And also just the whiteboard on their iPad, if it's not a lot of writing. Like this is easy to do on an iPad because it doesn't have a lot of writing.
And also, toward the middle of the year, my kids, I had them first grade, second grade, so they were pretty well versed in my routines, my expectations. So I had what I call Mrs. Alphson's class on Google Drive, and I shared it with them. So if I had a template that I wanted them to use, I had it in the Google Drive. They would go to my classroom, they would put it in Notability, and boom, there we are. So that's, it's just whatever works for you.
Mm-hmm. So starting Module 1, the first thing I would do, and I would do it 2 or 3 times, is read through the module overview, because it really does do a nice job of explaining exactly how this all works together, because all of EngageNY is based on that unit. And everything they use from kindergarten on up is based on that unit, and it kind of tells a story, and you will see where that module fits in the story, and you will see what they've had in the past, what they're coming with, and where they're headed to, and it'll tell you all the review standards from kindergarten and first, and then the standards that you're teaching, that's the second grade standard. So if you really look at that and pay attention to those standards, and especially these mathematical practice ones, because those are the ones where it's just good math thinking. It's not a academic standard, it's a practice standard. And so it will be marked MP, and it's marked right in your lesson. Usually it has a bracket like that, and it'll say MP whatever. And then you can go back and look at, there is a, at the beginning of the module, there is a list of all the mathematical practices. And if you type in EngageNY mathematical practices, it'll come up, that list of those practices that you can have. I'll explain the terminology. It'll show you all your materials you need. I use a lot of anchor charts in my classroom. I used to use them, put them on the board, and then I'd have all these all over, and then I'd end up throwing them away. So now I put them in a big old chart tablet, and it's my math one. So I just open it up, and if I have to refer to an old one, I can go back and find the one I wanted. So I have a number bond anchor chart that labels it part whole. That gives them some add-in, so it gives them some of the vocabulary right on there. So I would go ahead and encourage any kind of those anchor charts you can have, encourage you to use those. And when you're starting to look at the lesson, I would look at the suggested times and really try to stick with them, because otherwise you might get bogged down and not get through the lesson, because it is kind of a keep moving kind of lesson. And if you don't get it today, they'll go back over it again. So I would really try to stick to the times they give you, and kind of weed through. Also, at the beginning of the module, if it's pretty long, they'll give you some must-do, can-do suggestions. So some of the problems that are really, really essential to the learning, and then some that maybe are stretching or review. So look through those, and then you can kind of weed out the ones you might not want to do.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Since our kiddos will not have had kindergarten and first grade, and like I'm looking here at modules, students will advance from grade 1 subtraction of a multiple of 10 to a new complexity, da 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 da. Are we going to be, are they going to allow us more time to like get them familiar with that, or Will it not affect them as much since they don't have that background knowledge?
I don't think it'll affect them too much as long as you've looked at it and you kind of give them that terminology, because you've already decomposed. It's just a different vocabulary and a different kind of way of showing,
Okay.
you know, when you're doing it. So it'll come to them. It's just nothing that they've kind of done that way before. But they will, I think, understand it, was what I thought it kind of went through.
Okay, Module 1, Topic A, if you want to open it up, just so that you can kind of look through it as we're going through it. That Lesson 1 that I told you could either open in Notability or you can open it on your drive. Lesson 1, as we said, we did not teach at the beginning of 2nd grade. We started in the middle. So Lesson 1 is all about practice making 10 and adding to 10. This is the standard fluently add and subtract within 20 using mental strategies, and this is that mathematical practice that she was talking about. It's mathematical practice number 8, which is look for and express regularity and repeated reasoning. The suggested lesson structure for Engage New York is fluency practice, application, concept development, and then the student debrief. In the first 2 lessons, there is no application and concept development. They're just not there. It's heavy on the fluency, kind of teaching some of those
Procedures.
Procedures
You're just
and-
reviewing, so they're really
Yeah.
wanting you to go back and establish your own procedures or teach procedures so that you can continue on.
So you will not see these 2 in the first 2 lessons. These show up in Lesson 3. So this first lesson is heavy on fluency, and then there's a debrief. And so again, 47 minutes for the fluency, 13 for the student debrief.
So fluency is a big component of Engage New York. It's the first piece. The nice thing about fluency is they usually give you 3 or 4 options. And my understanding is you don't have to do all of them. Maybe choose 2 or 3. I would always do the sprints because that's your fact fluency piece. That kind of takes the place of extra math or rocket math. That'll kind of help you with that. Fluency is just to develop speed and accuracy. And there are 3 kinds of fluency. Some of them are maintenance, so you just stay sharp on what skill you already know. There's preparation to kind of get you ready for the lesson you're going to teach. And then there's anticipation, which builds on skills that will be for future lessons. So when you're looking through them, right now they'll probably all be ones you're not familiar with. So I would encourage you to try as many as you can. The fluency practices, like the script, is only listed the first time it shows you the script the first time it's shown. So if you have to kind of put a note on that page or sticky note to remind yourself how to do that particular fluency, then you have to go back and look at it again because they won't repeat those directions for like the script for how to do it. In other words, go ahead and go
Do you
forward.
want me to go?
Yeah, so in other words, like when you're doing 10 frame flash, which is the first fluency in this lesson, it will show you the directions for it, but only this time. The fluencies, there's counting, there's whiteboard, there's sprints, and then there's games and puzzles, which I've included in the resources on our classroom. And I would just encourage you when you're doing that to make sure that you're using your hand signals. So for instance, if I was doing the 10 frame flash, I would have taught my kids that it's say it. So if you look at this, say it.
8,
What do I need to add to 8 to get 10?
2,
Say it.
2,
Give me a number sentence starting with 8 that gets to 10.
8 plus 2 equals 10.
Good. How many? Say it.
2,
What number do I need to add to 2 to get to 10?
8.
Good. Tell me a number sentence, that expression for 8 that starts with 2.
2 plus 8 equals 10.
Good. And then it'll tell you, even into this lesson, it'll say, tell me a subtraction sentence beginning with 10.
10 minus 2 equals 8.
Right. So see how you already did that, Coral? You're really good at that. So that's just how that does it. And I would just do that. That's all the fluency is. And then
Where are those?
these are actually mine that I've used before, but they have them in the lesson 1 back in your templates. So they'll be, if you keep going that lesson, they'll be in one of your templates. So there's base 10 And new to me is these little dot charts. So they want you to try to kind of interchange them. So how many? Say it.
4.
What do I add to 4 to get to 10? Say it.
6.
Tell me a number sentence starting with 4.
4 plus 6 equals 10.
Good. So then you do it again. How many?
7.
Say it. What number do I add to 7 to get to 10? Say it.
3.
Good. Give you a number sentence starting with 7. That gives me 10. Say it.
7 plus 3 equals 10.
So that's, and these cards are right in the templates. Yes.
So what are you doing with little Susie that's going?
Well, little Susie will meet with you at the table at the end of the lesson. Got it?
Hopefully little
Yeah.
Susie is listening.
So yeah, because, and I'm pretty fast with you right now. I would give them more think time, if it was my,
So you're training them, don't say it until I say it.
right. I would say, if it's my first lesson, honestly, I would say, think, say it.
6.
Okay. How many do I need to add to 6 to make 10?
Think.
Say it.
4.
Good. So I would slow it down at the beginning, but I guess I'm kind of used to using my other kids. But the first time, I would just slow it down so everybody can be successful and they know exactly what they're doing.
So you wouldn't give them like a prompt count on or a way?
Not for this one. Not for this one, because the script is right in there. So it kind of depends what you.
Set of those for the teacher?
I keep are just my sets. I don't make them for the kids.
Okay.
Nope.
Just see when I need to prepare.
There's some things like happy counting that they pair up and do, but like these are usually teacher directed fluencies.
And they're usually like right up on the carpet, right by me. So
Yeah,
they can
so
all
when I
see
start,
it.
they're right here with me, and we just go. So I have these right up on my chart tablet, and we do them a lot. So that's the first fluency. The next one is happy counting, and I don't know if you're familiar with the Say 10 way. Are you familiar with the Say 10 way? Okay, so
Do you want the rec and rec?
yeah, it's going to ask you to use a rec and rec. Now they use a rec and rec in kindergarten, and in first grade they make rec and rec bracelets, and they use rec and recs a lot. I made a rec and rec with a pool noodle. If you take a pool noodle and you just cut it up into like little 3-inch segments, cut it apart, slice it down the long way, then it fits right on your chalk tray and you can slide them around. It's really cool. But I would do that for first grade. I'm not sure you would need that for second grade. But you can also get an app that has rec and recs. And so the Say 10 way is just, you want to go ahead, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
9, 10.
9, 10. 10, 1, 10, 2, 10, 3, 10, 4, 10, 5, 10, 6, 10, 7, 10, 8, 10, 9, 2
Two
10s.
tens.
Then it goes 2, 10, 1, 2, 10, 2,
1,
2, 10, 3.
So we're going to have to teach them how to count like that.
Yes, because these guys will not know. That's the hard part, is you're going to have all of that little stuff to gain. But it's not super complicated. It's just a matter of it's doing it over and over again. And it will every time they do it. They say, do it the Say 10 way. And then you'll say to the kids, Say 10 way.
And the purpose is because 11, 12, 13 is so confusing for kids. And what they need to know is it's 110
And 2
plus
more.
1 more.
Or 2 more and 3
A
more.
10 and 3. A 10 and 4. And that is the purpose in the Say 10 way. So that they make that.
To transition that to like real
Yes,
real
they
numbers?
use both.
Right, so when
So
you
they
do,
should be able to use it interchangeably.
yeah, so you could do 13, 14, 15, 10, 6, 10, 7, 18, 19,
If you look at the
20.
script, it kind of
So-
will tell you.
to switch back and forth. And that
How
kind
to
of, but
do it.
when you're just starting, I wouldn't quite do all that craziness.
Well, we were told that each kid needed one of these rec and recs, so we don't really need an actual.
You know,
You don't.
I've not done the beginning of second grade, but my guess is that they should be pretty fluent within the counting to 100 in second grade, I would guess. That's what I would try.
There, I put 2 apps in the Google Classroom as technology resources.
Because I could just show them.
Yeah, if you had a class
People
one.
like making
Yeah.
them and
So
they're making
your
sense for
little
their
Susie
class.
that doesn't have rote counting, etc. Like, I've got, last year I would have had probably 5 that would have been causing behavior problems and not even paying attention. They would not get this at all.
Right. You will have to kind of gauge your group, and you might have to slow down. You might have to go back to first grade or kindergarten if they bought Rec and Recs and bring them in and actually have move them. I don't know if we got them on their iPads. I don't know if it's an app that's approved, but you might have to have them actually doing it. But they will get, because every time, I think for the first whole module, they do Rec and Rec counting and they do a lot of happy counting. So happy numbers, it just goes like this. It goes like this is up, this is pause, this is down. So you say, I'm going to start with 10-2. Ready?
10-3, 10-4, 10-5, 10-6,
10-5,
10-4, 10-3, 10-2, 10-3, 10-4, 10-5, 10-6, 10-7, 10-8, 10-9, 2 10s, 2 10s, 1, 2 10s, 1 10,
9, 1, 10, 8. Yeah, so it's going to take some thinking. And in the script, it'll tell you 13, 14, 15,
16,
16, 10, 7. Yeah, so it's you have to kind of switch them back and forth. I wouldn't go there until Susie had mastered what it was. And it's going to probably take a little longer. They have bracelets that they can make, but the bracelets aren't going to help them once they get past 10 a whole lot.
Right, but my concern is, like you said, it's easy to throw a number in there to challenge your high kids.
Right.
And so they're getting engaged by that, but how are you engaging or keeping the kids engaged that are completely lost?
Well, at some point in the lesson, I'm not sure where it is in second grade, they turn to each other and they do happy counting together. So I work with my partner, and I know, like, when we did it, was later in the year, we would do like counting by, I think we were counting by tens, like 430, 440.
440, 450, 460, 470, 460, 450, 440.
So they would work back and forth, and you could walk around and see how they were doing, and maybe those young kids would still be really in the tens, and you might pull them up and do it with them as the other ones are going along doing it. So happy counting, it kind of, the actual fluency, the procedure will be like used at different lessons. So they use it in counting coins. So in coins, they use it in counting time. So 2:15, 3:15, 4:15, 1:15. So it's used all the way throughout. So once they know what this is, then they'll get more familiar with it. And like I would say, I would start really slow.
So in your low kids, you're just going to have to meet with individually, and you're just going to have to pull them along, because you're not going to hold up the whole class
no.
Right.
to review those low things.
Exactly, because your fluency is going to run this first couple lessons 47 minutes, so longer. But I would go ahead and just do it with them every day, and they'll get it. I know they'll get it.
Okay, I have 2 questions.
Mm-hmm.
The happy counting, is that the going up and going down?
Yep.
And the saying 10-1, 10-2? Or is
No,
that
that's
say
the say
10.
10 way.
That's the say 10 way. That's
Say 10. You can do
say
happy
10. You can do happy counting with say 10. Exactly.
So this is happy. And then my other question is, did you guys use Daily 3 with Engage New York?
No.
Or, okay, planning
Kind
to?
Well, what we did is when we finished the lesson after about an hour,
Yeah.
it takes about an hour, then we broke them up in groups.
Okay.
And that's how we did it. We differentiate at the end.
We tried some of it.
At the workshop afterwards.
It was hard.
And yeah, we didn't know what we were going to do with them.
Right.
Yeah, we used the exit tickets from the lesson to help us pull up the kids we needed help with. That's what we did.
Yeah.
So then the last one is the sprint, and you've probably heard a lot about the sprint, and I'm an advocate of doing it on paper. So I don't know if your principal says, who told you that? You can say Nancy Abraham said she does it at Comanche, because I do. And it'll tell you in the procedures to like turn it over so that the blank side is showing. I ran them back to back. There's an A and a B. So I ran them back to back. It's not that big a deal. But it is supposed to make them kind of, their adrenaline to start to go. They're supposed to want to do well. But it is not homework. It is not to be completed. It is not to be sent home if they didn't get finished or stay in for recess. It is simply to help them build fluency and confidence and speed. What you could do if you wanted to send it home with them and they want to do it at home, they could. But it is not something that they have to finish and complete.
Do you do both the sprints in the same day?
Yes.
I do.
How long do they get for each?
They 1 minute. So, and the
But
script is,
we kind of stretched that at the beginning.
yeah.
I mean, at the beginning, I think I gave them 3 minutes per side because I wanted them to kind of get in the mode
Well, and I would,
1
because some of
minute.
these kids haven't done a sprint before.
ever.
So you would have to,
The person that I engaged in a class that I took said that they did 2 minutes the whole entire school year.
Which-
So does it really matter?
I don't think that the procedure tells you 1 minute. So I guess it's different if these kids have been doing sprints since kindergarten on, but they're brand new to sprint. So what I would do, and I would make a poster size like this, and I would do it all together as a class for like the first week, at least few days, so that they can kind of see how it's done, and they can see you make a mistake. Otherwise, you're going to have kids who want to be erasing and putting the right answer on there, you know, so they can see how that works. So I would do it right with them, and I would talk to them how, you know, this is sprint A. We always start the column and we go down, and we start the next column and go down. There is an order. They get more difficult, so they shouldn't be moving
Skipping
around. They should start here and go all the way down. What I like about the sprints is it changes where the expression is in the answer. So it really helps them think, and it builds patterns, and they can really see those patterns when they start to do it. It's pretty phenomenal. Yeah.
So then after they do it once and for a minute, and then do you have them go over the answers together out loud? Isn't that
Right.
what it said to do?
Right.
And
So
then they try and beat that. Is that right?
right. So they do a time. So if you want to say, you want to read the script. Do you know the script by your hand, by your heart?
No, I don't know this from my heart.
Here. It's right here. You will have 10 minutes. You have 1 minute.
Okay. You will have 60 seconds to do as many problems as you can do. I do not expect you to finish all of them. Do as many as you can. Do your personal best.
Ready,
Take your mark.
get set, think.
Think. Stop. Circle the last problem you did. I will read just the answers. If you got it right, call out yes. If you made a mistake, circle it. Ready? And then as we go
Okay,
through
go.
it.
Oh, say 11.
11,
Yes,
12,
yes,
14,
yes,
13,
yes.
15,
Oh, that's supposed to go. Go.
16, 11,
Yeah.
14, 13.
Okay, so I got 7 right, which is a very good. So what happens is they will quickly record the ones they got wrong, how many they got right. Then you tell them to turn it over, and that's their goal, their personal goal.
To beat that score.
If they stop, like if they only got to 13, they'll stop saying yes. So you just keep going until you don't hear any more yeses. 15, 12, 16, 19. When the yeses stop, then everybody's gotten as far as they could get.
And if Johnny's over there saying yes and he has nothing on his paper.
Yeah. So then that's when. So then they figure out what they get. They turn it over and they do it again. And it's their personal goal is to get as far as they can get.
Did you do yours double-sided?
We did.
No, I did.
Yes.
Yes, I did.
Yes.
So then if they flip it over and that's their goal, the other one would be
Well, they flip it over, and this number is their goal.
from the one before?
Yes.
From A
So
to B?
yes.
Right. They try to beat
They
that
try to
score.
beat their time. And the sprint will tell you to give them a little break in between. You know, I'm not sure it's that taxing, but if you want them to, if you want them to stretch their arms or jump up and down, you could do that really quickly. But
Do a little class cheer. Woo, woo.
yeah. So, but I think that what you're really encouraging is just you want them to not switch answers. So you want them to be honest. And then after you finish sprint A and sprint B, then they will give you, I'll give you about a minute to look over and fix your answers. And then it also will tell you, you can talk to your partner, talk about like round robin, what you've discovered, like look for patterns. So one person says something, next person says something, so they can talk a minute about their things. Usually when they're doing that is when I set up my concept development lesson, because right after the sprint is where the teacher instruction piece comes. So I usually use that time for them to go back and fix their errors and talk, for me to pull together my noodles or whatever I needed to do to get us ready to go for the lesson.
So what
Okay.
if they do get stuck on one? Like let's say they get stuck on number 4.
They just skip it and go on.
They can skip.
Mhm.
They shouldn't go.
They
on.
should, yeah, yeah. They should just go down.
Okay.
Yeah, and look for those patterns as they're going down.
And the emphasis is not on the mistakes. The emphasis is on trying to get better each time, improving that fluency. That's the emphasis. That's the goal.
And I agree. I think I would start, if I was starting second grade and I knew these kids didn't have any Engage New York, I would build in 4 minutes. I think I would build in 3-4 minutes in the beginning, just to get them to feel like have some success, you know,
I
and
have a friend
practice.
who piloted it, and she did one sprint on Monday and one sprint on Tuesday.
Except sometimes the lessons they usually have a sprint in each one. So maybe,
I don't know her reasoning behind it, or some lessons didn't have
maybe
sprints,
some didn't have a
or-
sprint, right?
Yeah. She said it was, I don't know if it's beneficial in between for them to see what their goal yesterday was, and now a whole day's gone by, now try and beat your goal, or I don't know what the reasoning behind it is.
I don't either. Actually, if you look at the sprint dialogue, what the instructions they give you, they tell you just to take a break and go right to B. So, yes.
Is there a place somewhere on their website where you could print sprints off for the whole year? Or do you have to go lesson by lesson? Like, could you make a book that's bound and
Have the sprints in there?
Yeah.
I think I saw it maybe like on Teachers Pay Teachers. I think I might have saw somebody do some fluency pieces.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you can go onto the website and just print off
But you have to go to each individual
each individual lesson. Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
If you create that, I'll take it.
Yeah.
I know. I think if you type in Sprint Notebook, you might have some success. So try that Sprint Notebook, see what happens. So in this first lesson, those are the sprints that you have, all 3 of those. And I would do all 3 of those continually. I would do them with a lot of
How long
practice.
does that take for all 3 of those?
Well, it gives you 47 minutes, I think.
Oh, just for those
For the
3?
fluency, for all of those fluency pieces.
Oh, that's 20.
Because what they want you to do is teach
'em.
procedures, you know, give them some, you know, some successes. Yeah, teach them how to do it, show them, you know, how to, yeah. So that's, the first lesson has no teacher instruction in it. It's just a lot of fluency, which is all supposed to be review, but for these kids, it's new terminology.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Okay, so the last piece of fluency that they have is target practice activity. You won't usually have an activity like this for most of the fluencies. Usually they're 15 minutes, 15 to 18 minutes fluency, not very long. It's really long this first lesson because it's review and because they want you to teach procedures, hand signals, expectations, all those kinds of skills that you're going to need as you go along. And they're not teaching new instruction at all, the first 2 lessons. So this target practice will be in lesson 1. And I would do it on either your desk or on your whiteboard on your iPad, or if you just had this and you wanted them to draw it out, I would draw it out. But I don't know if I would have to mess with this.
And in your lesson, it tells you to do it with a partner. Lesson 1.
No.
I would not do that. I would do it guided, teach it, show it. Partner can come later.
Right. Okay. So do you want to do it with me?
So in this lesson, the target is the whole, goes in the top. It says that you can have a target of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The goal is to figure out how to make groups of 10. That's the ultimate goal there. Partner A rolls the dice, writes the number, and then partner B finds the missing part. So teacher would be partner A, student would be partner B.
Okay, tell me the target, Miss Alphson.
So target is 7.
So your students would put a 7 right here. After you've had a chance to do it first. I would do it myself first.
What's that app called?
Shake 'em dice.
Is that
Okay,
better?
1. Find the missing part. Say it.
6.
Okay, your target is 7.
Is
5.
that a 5?
Find the missing part. Say it.
2.
Okay, give me a number sentence.
5 plus 2 equals 7.
Your target is 9.
Are you just calling on different students to do this, or this is all one student?
I would do it with whole group.
I would do it whole group. So
Whole group.
the
Everybody's
whole
sitting
group-
at their
it
desk?
Yeah, it will tell you in your lesson this time because they would have had assumed that they've had done this how many times. It'll say, partner these kiddos up and do it. I wouldn't do that. No, I would do it with them. I would have this on my board and I would say, okay, our target is 9. Everyone write it. 9. Where does it go? Yep. I'd do it all with them. Everybody put a 9 there. Then I would roll that.
Okay, 5. The
And this
number
is good
5.
because it's subitizing. So what is that? That's 5. Let's write it. That's a, and this is time for your addend because they will assume at this point that these kids know what an addend is. So I'd say, oh, our first addend is 5. Next time I would say, what's my missing part? So use all that terminology. Our first addend is 5. What's my missing part? Say it. 4. Okay, so part plus part is whole. A part and a part make a whole. A part and a part to make a whole. You know, add a part to another part, a part and a part to make a whole. So whatever you do to help them with that language, but part, add in, whole, total, use all of those terms interchangeably because they are all listed in the module. And they will see and hear every one of them. And I guess what Denise and I are telling you is that when you're looking at that first lesson, slow it down, like put it on reverse and slowly go through it so you can really teach the procedures. And I would do a lot of whole group at first. I would not put them in pairs on the first day and ask them to do this with a buddy. Maybe the next day. And there is a template that has a target number. So maybe the next day you say to them, okay, friends, your target number is 10. Work with your partner. Partner A rolls, write it. I mean, you might do that day 4, day 3. I wouldn't do it day 1. I would slow it way down because you want to make sure that they understand what a number bond is. I don't know if those first grade teachers taught them number bonds. I don't know. So you want to make sure on your anchor chart that they know this is a part, and this is a part, and this is the whole. What's another word for whole? Total. Yep, this is our total.
Sum.
So, you know, I just think you need to spend a lot of time with that, and that's why they gave you 47 minutes on the first day. They don't want you rushing through this lesson because it's about review, but more than that, it's about procedures, terminology, expectations for how the program works. So I would play that game together. I wouldn't even break them up in partners that first day. And then that's all your first day is, except debrief. Because there's no concept development, there's no new instruction. So concept development is usually the big piece of the lesson. That's an instructional piece. And the debrief is kind of like your closure. So it's when the students talk, it's the math talk, and that's where your exit ticket happens. So you kind of finish it off. Okay? Any questions about that activity? Okay. So concept development is, it is just so well written out. If you go look at your lessons, it'll say teacher, student, teacher, student, teacher, student. Now, when I first sat down to do it, I had the thing in front of me, and I'm like, reading the teacher said, you know, I did, and it took me like just a few days to realize that's not going to work because what they tell you is not going to be what's exactly on that script. But it is imperative that you read through that script so you know where it's headed. and you know what the beef of that program is, because it will stop and show you pictures and diagrams of what you need to show on that board. So you need to get the kids from here to here, and that's how you kind of map that way. It might not look exactly that same language back and forth, but it really guides you as you're going through that lesson. So I would read through that script as a part of my getting ready for the lesson, so you know what it is you're trying to teach that day. And they do a great job of putting in diagrams, of labeling the mathematical practices, of showing you what that solutions might look like. You know, they give you lots of options. If it's decomposing, it'll show you how they decompose that. And I just do that right on the board with the kids. So
and the concept development is essentially the meat of the lesson. This is where you want to spend the most time, generally.
So, yeah.
So after they do their sprints, what do you do with those? Do you look them over?
Send them home.
They just go home.
Send them home.
Yep.
You don't have to grade.
Nope, not to grade them. They're not to be graded, not to be tested, not to be finished, not to be.
Do I even have to look at them?
Nope.
Nope.
I would look at them as I walk around.
Yeah, but they can just file in their file.
Yep.
Take them home. Yep. And I would explain that to the parents, because if you're sending those home, some parents might make their kids actually have to do them at home at night like it's homework. So when you have your back to school night, I would explain to parents, this is how we're building speed and accuracy, and we're looking for growth. And the purpose of this is for students to see success and how they're growing. And this isn't homework for them to do at home. If they want to practice it, they can, but it's not homework. I would make sure they understood that. Yes?
How have the parents adjusted to this?
Well, we don't have a ton of involvement, but we did actually, I got a lot of really positive, because I have really bright kids, I have some really bright kids, and they were like doing fabulous stuff, like their tape diagrams and their problem solving, their mental math was pretty phenomenal. It really was, because as you get into the second grade, the part that I got to teach, because this part we didn't teach, but we did things like, there'll be like 237 plus what number equals 300. And the kids will sit there and do different strategies. And the program does a fabulous job of showing you. And I have kids on Seesaw explaining how they got there. So some use the arrow way, so it's plus 10. So it's 247 plus 10, 257 plus 10, 267 plus 10. So I have kids who drew that all the time. They did arrow way. I had other kids who, if you were doing like 23 plus some number equals 49, they would go to me, well, 2 10s and 2 10s make 4 10s, so that has to be a 2. So 2 10s plus what number gives me 4 10s, and 3 1s plus what number gives me 9 1s. So my answer is 26. So they would do all those strategies, and all of them are right in the program, and they solve it really phenomenal ways. They really do. So if you can make it through this first part, it really gets really fun in December because they're doing a lot of neat stuff, and they're doing angles with noodles and shapes. The shapes were lots of fun. Time, they did a nice job. But they just do. There's really a lot of engagement, a lot of thought-provoking kind of problems.
The kids like it.
They do, and it's in the concept development piece. Although it's a real long piece, that's the time where a lot of times they go back to their seat, they work with a partner, they're doing things together, they come back. So they're not sitting there on the carpet anymore. They're actually back. A lot of times they're with you for a while, then they go back, they do something, they come back with you. So there's a lot of, and there's a problem set piece. I don't know if you've got into that problem set, but after you taught the lesson, then they start working on the problem set, and that's all independent. So you're walking around, and that's when you can see how Susie's doing, because you're walking around going, how you doing on that problem set. You're kind of watching them because it's all independent. And it kind of gives you an indication of where they're at. Then you go through the problem set together with them, and then they do their exit ticket and debrief. Yes?
Did you use any other apps on their iPads at all? Or was this strictly Engage? I mean, did you do extra math?
I did.
Let's say is there any small group instruction at all with this, or?
I did my small group instruction at the last half hour of the thing. So the first hour, I always gave 1 hour for EngageNY.
So what about
Teaching
those
time.
kids that need to be challenged?
I pulled them up. I had students who were multiplying in second grade,
So were
multiplying.
they working on extra math or anything like
Yes,
that?
they did. They passed addition, subtraction, multiplication. I had 3 that passed division. I mean, I had kids who were really bright doing, and then we did, they'd pull me up and we did, Ken puzzles. You know, so we did Ken puzzles, we did Sudoku, some of those kinds of problems. We did a lot of just stretching kinds of things with them. And then I had kiddos who were still working on, you know, breaking those 10s into 1s and subtracting, you know, and they should have bought us place value discs. And we were using the hundreds and tens blocks, but we haven't received our discs yet. Did you guys get discs?
We have them coming.
Okay, yeah, you should be getting those, and those will be, because those will fit right with the lesson. It shows you how to use them, so it's perfect.
Are there other things you can think of that we need to get ourselves? Like, I keep hearing you say noodles.
Oh, those like spaghetti.
Oh, spaghetti.
Like spaghetti noodles.
Spaghetti noodles?
Yeah, eventually, but just one box,
Okay.
and it tells you to cut them just to get ready. So when you do angles, you lay them out. It's just kind of, you know, you're talking about how many sides a shape has, and they're building different shapes, and it's actually it's very engaging. Every single lesson is really pretty engaging.
Somebody said straws. Do you need all straws?
If you go to the SMSD website, on the elementary, there's a link that shows you every module and what they use in every module, and what you can substitute if you don't have it, or what you need in advance.
Right. It's all pretty easy stuff. Like you might need a bag with 20 beans, or 20, so I just put 20 counters in there. Whatever it is, and it's not, but it really helps if you have that bag set up before the lesson starts. So you're not counting out 20 things. You know what I mean? So you just need to look ahead and see what it is you need. The application problem is another one of my favorites. It usually is before. It's usually before the concept development piece. And lesson 3, I think, comes after because they wanted to teach it to you. But I think if you remember when Engage people came out, it's RDW. So you read the problem, you draw and label the problem, and then you write the number, sentence, and you write a statement. You have to do both. So you want to show them the example from lesson 3?
Sure.
Well, actually, it's right on that PowerPoint, babe.
It's here. Wait, what?
It's right on that PowerPoint.
Oh, it is?
Yep.
Sorry.
I think it's about Cindy or Carol or
There it is.
Mary. So Mary buys 30 stickers. She puts 7 in her friend's backpack. How many stickers does Mary have left? So what I would do is I would write that on the board. I usually have it written before the kiddos came in. That was our sentence. And I would do it together with them the first several times. I also have a math notebook for my kids, and then eventually they solve it in their math notebook. So they do a lot of those big solving on paper because there's not a lot of room, and it's hard for them to write on their iPads and on these little dry erase things. So I use notebook. I use a math notebook.
So you'd have them write this whole thing out?
No, I have them solve in there. I write that up. But if you go to some sites, you might look application problems up, and they're in strips. And so you might get like all the application problems for that module, and then you can cut them up, and they glue stick them on the top of their page. That's a good idea. So,
Like Zern or one of those.
yeah, or if you just Google, you might get like somebody who did it already for you, and they've typed them all up, and you just have to like cut them apart. So that's what I would do. But if you've not done tape diagrams, have you guys familiar with tape diagrams? No? So, so what you would do with these when they're first started is I don't know if I would say to these kids, solve it for me right away because they're brand new. So I would look at that and maybe put them in pairs or let them try first. And then I would get together and do it all on the board the first few times so they can kind of see some different ways. Because you want to show them several ways to solve the problem because you want them to know that there's not just one way to do it. So you want them to really feel like they have some options. So Mary buys 30 stickers. She puts 7 in her friend's backpack. How many stickers does Mary have left? So I would say to my friends at 2nd grade, I think I would still say to my friends, you know, look with your friend or work for yourself a minute, see what you come up with. Let them draw. How would you draw that? You might have kids who do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You're going to have kids who do that. You're going to have 30 little circles all over the place. And that's super. If you don't have kids who've been taught the tape diagram, you won't see any of that. If you do, then you'll see kids who do this. So 30 is my whole. Part that I know is 7, the missing part is there. So you might have kids who do it that way. So and if you don't, you're going to have to show them how to do this. And all of those are in there, how you could draw that out. But I would encourage this because that's really concrete thinking. That's exactly where they're at. And at least they know what's going on. What do we know about this problem, friends? We know that she had 30 stickers. Yeah, that sounds like it's our whole. Then what happened? So talk about that action. And I would have students come up and draw what they put on their notebook. I would just say, okay, I'm going to put this here. Okay, so Sue, come up here, show me what you put on your notebook. Who else has? Okay, so Ben, come on up here, show me what you put on your notebook. So you can see that everybody did it differently. And then you're also going to have ones that are wrong. And remember, then we're going to celebrate. Woohoo! We get to grow! Yeah, great job making that mistake. Now we can figure out what to do. So I think that's, so just go ahead and show them all of those different ways of doing it. When they do it, they also have to, and when they have to put like 7 plus 23 equals 30. So that's their number expression, their number sentence. And then they have to write a statement, which I think is awesome because anytime they have to write a complete sentence with a period, starts with a capital, it's a good idea. So it says, how many stickers does Mary have left? Mary has, and some people like to start with this before they write the number sentence so we know what we're looking for. It's your preference how you want to teach that. So this is what we're looking for, how many stickers she has left. And you're also probably going to get people who will do this. And then you can talk about that, how they're related. So then you're, oh, look it. So you started with your whole, and these are our parts. So it can be addition sentence or it can be subtraction sentence. Look at that. Isn't that neat how numbers work? So you can talk about that. This is pretty cool. And then I would do that together a lot. I would do that together. Before I even gave them my notebook for them to work on, I would let them try it on their own a little bit, see how they do, and then have them come up and do different examples. I wouldn't start by doing it just you, because then what's going to happen is they're all going to want to do it just like you. And then you're going to have, because you have kids who aren't ready for this yet if they haven't been taught that. Because it gets kind of complicated as you're going on. Because you might have 60 vegetables and 10 are green beans and 37 are cucumbers. The rest are tomatoes. How many are tomatoes? Well, that gets kind of difficult. And so those kids who have to pull that apart, this tape diagram is going to become real important. So you want them to know how to do it. Yes?
Would it be okay, because you've been talking about number bonds, if they started with that strategy with whole?
Yes, because you would say, well, tell me what you were thinking when you did that. That's what I would say. Tell me what you were thinking. Oh, you're right, that is the whole. So you knew right away, Sue, that there was a missing part. Wow, how clever are you? How does that look like this one?
So it'd be okay if they
Absolutely. You absolutely want them to have several ways to solve the problems and to know there's not one solution. So you need to know, first of all, we celebrate mistakes. We love mistakes in Mrs. Abraham's room. Second thing is, there's not one solution to any problem. So really encourage that diversity so that they know How they figure out is important and valid, because part of the mathematical practice, the best part, is them explaining their answer. So that's a debrief. Okay, tell me, why did you do it like this? And having them talk that out through you so you see their reasoning, but otherwise you won't know what they're doing. Why did you draw so many circles up here? What were you thinking when you drew those? Can you tell the class what you were thinking? So then they have to verbalize that. So you know that they had a plan. So you can see where their errors are, if they have errors, where they're making their mistakes.
I guess my other question is, because we keep talking about manipulatives, what if they say, can I go get?
Absolutely. Absolutely, I would say.
Okay.
Yes.
There's so many of them that go to resource and
Absolutely.
have access to
The
all this
concrete kids need those manipulatives.
stuff. Okay, so that's okay.
Absolutely.
So if I was teaching this day 3, or it probably won't be day 3, but it's lesson 3 for you guys, I would probably read it to them, give them a short time on their own to figure it out, then bring them all back up and see if you have some volunteers who want to show you what they did. And I would look at all those different ways and talk about it. Have them reason, talk about it, use the language, and then remind them there's lots of ways to solve the problem. Because then they can really understand that there's more than one way to get there. And that's important. Yeah?
So like if a student uses their number line to solve that problem.
Absolutely.
They need to draw it though. Would they just
Yes, they would just draw it right on there.
show them
Yeah.
running back? Okay.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of our students just, count
Right.
the number line, like get the answer right there.
Yeah, and as they get farther on in second grade, they'll ask them to solve it. And then they would say, write what you did. And I would make my kids write. I use the arrow method to get to 50, then I added 4 more. I would make them write that on there. Or write, yeah. I looked at hundreds and tens, so there's different ways of solving it. And then that's what I would take a picture of, and that's what they would take a picture of and send on their seesaw so their parents could see their thinking, which is really what it's all about, is their thinking.
We're almost out of time. You wanna
Okay,
do
so this is just a little.
We can see it later.
Yeah, you can actually watch on your own. It's just a little tiny thing. You might show your parents about how kids solve problems in second grade. It's big problems, like using big numbers with little kids. So it's kind of fun because it's like, I don't know, they're trying to figure out. It'll show you tape diagrams and it'll kind of show you how they do that. And then the last thing that I don't want to make sure we don't forget is the debrief. So a debrief is so important, and I would do a lot of that together. This right here is a debrief. If you sit your kids down, you say, okay, tell Mrs. Abraham what we did today. What do you think was the reason we had our lesson today? What do you think we did? What did we learn? And then we would talk about that. And we would talk about how we solved it, so different strategies we used. What did you wonder about? What was hard? What connections did you see from yesterday? I would do a lot of that whole group. Eventually they debrief together first, and then they come back to you and we talk about it. So a debrief is it's basically math talk. It's when they sit there and they kind of reflect on their lesson. What did we do? What did we learn? Why is it important? How does it fit in our math story? What does it have to do with what we're doing here in this room? What was hard? Why was that hard? What can we remember for tomorrow? So all those kinds of things is so important. One way to do that, it's just like when you're doing reading responses, is to give them stems. Like, it was hard when, or, so you teach them that language. Yeah, I was excited when I discovered whatever. So you give them some different stems to help them. Use open-ended questioning, teach them to listen to each other, honor their mistakes, focus on the strategies and not the right and wrong. Really important, because that's where you see what they took out of the lesson. So
what's the exit ticket?
Oh, exit ticket is at the very end, so it's very small.
It's like one question.
Yeah, one question. And it basically has, so after you do the actual concept development piece, then there's a problem set. And the problem set is kind of like guided practice, only they're on their own. They're doing it by themselves. And then you kind of go back and you look it over with them. So you go over it all together. And then after you finish that, then they go to the exit ticket. So my kiddos who were really, really bright zipped through that problem set like nothing. So I would look at theirs, checked it all right. Sometimes I gave them the homework, sometimes I didn't. Sometimes I moved them on to what they were working on. So they were doing other skills. So I said, you go ahead and do this, 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 this. Because they didn't need any
Extra
more of that.
practice.
They need extra practice. And my kids so I had 7 kids. 7 kids who every time pretty much didn't do homework because the homework is just another problem set, just more practice.
So we don't have to send that homework home? Is that?
No, I didn't send any homework home. The homework that we did in the class. So after we did the problem set together, those kids that needed extra practice, I gave them the homework. I sent it on Notability. I said, okay, go do your homework. So they were doing homework with me, if there was just a few of them, or on their own, I'd pull up small groups. So, but I didn't always give the homework to everybody. Most everybody, but not always everybody. So
And
the
then
exit, because the exit ticket, if they know it right away, you'll know it. Then I just marked them off. And they have exit tickets in Go Formative if you already put in there. So that's an app you can use. And they're not up yet. So you can go in there and they're already done.
So you print off that you pass off the
Yeah, they're like little sheets.
Shobi also has everything for EngageNY already up.
Uploaded, they do. So I would say try some of those options before you print off that. As far as printing, I would look at the sprints, and I would look at the templates that you think you'll use that are most valuable to you. And I did my templates for first grade on oat tag so that they'd be more durable. But I'm still going to put them in between the red and the white. But I just made them more durable so they would last longer.
That's what you're using for their wipe-off board?
It is what I'm going to use.
Would you recommend that over an actual? Because I have a set of whiteboards.
I do too. The only reason this is wonderful is because for the complicated templates, it's right there.
Okay.
So,
You can slip it
and if
in.
you open it up in Notability, there's usually not enough space to write. It's harder to see.
Is it cardstock in there?
Yeah, so the templates go in between. So this is your whiteboard when you just want a whiteboard. When they finish, shows they're done. So you might say to them, today we're using this template. Could you reach inside and get your template, put it out on your work side, and then they put it out here and they're ready to go. So that's what I would use for those. Otherwise, I do like just the whiteboard on their iPad. It's just it's smaller, you know. So this is a little bit bigger, and this has the actual. Because some of the templates get kind of complicated, and you can't. Yeah, you can't draw them. So do you have any questions? I didn't leave much time. Yes.
What do you use for grades?
For grades?
Yeah, like if parents want to see something that actually you like graded and show how they done. You don't have an entire girl.
Right. So our instructional coach helped us because we had that same struggle last year. We're like, how do we do this? She helped us pull together the standards that we were doing for that particular module, and then we had a what would you call that? Like a document that we would put in like quick rubrics. Like if it was a 5, we'd give it a 5 or 3 or a 5 or 4 or a 3, and then we had like 5 to do, and then we averaged them out. So it was pretty quick. Yeah. Yeah, we use we use we look at it and say, is it, did they give a 5, do a 4, or a 3? What do they have? And so then.
Subjective, you didn't have anything to back it up. If the parent came in and said, "Why did they get a 5 on this?"
Not for a lot of the to-do ones, like the ones that we did in class. I had really for like facts, like the fact tests and stuff. Then I would have one that have a test, and also I would put. There are mid-module assessments and there are mid-module and also end of the module assessments, but they don't come very often. I did. And those were test grades as well. But I didn't want to wait till the mid-module to get information. I kind of wanted to see what was going on.
And
so.
I also continued to use the daily math that we had a couple years ago.
The distributive review.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we did that too.
We're redoing the distributive review to go along with it, but it will not be ready this year.
Yeah, I don't think Gold was even available, is what I heard.
Take a year
Well, I
off.
have a copy of it, so.
To not use it because it doesn't go along with EngageNY.
But I thought they said not, well, but I asked for you not to. We did,
Yeah. I would get direction from your principal. I don't know if they're going to use them or not. But I also did extra practice. If it was something that I pulled extra worksheets if I needed to do with small groups. I would do different things with them. I would still do, yeah.
Yeah, I did. Nope. No. because it's mostly,
Thank
you know,
you.
addition, subtraction. It's just, you know.
Good.